In 1959, Nikon took over the camera world with the release of one of the first truly practical SLRs, the Nikon F. And they did such a good job, it almost killed off Leica entirely. But after 862,000 units sold, how do you improve on that? You make the Nikon F2, arguably one of, if not the best, 35mm mechanical SLRs ever made. On the 21st of September 1971, Nikon unleashed the F2 onto an unprepared world with all the modern features for a camera of the time. Is what I would say, but the F2 was not a revolutionary camera like the F, but a refinement to arguably make the perfect mechanical SLR. So the F2's big spec bump is an increased max shutter speed from 1/1000 to 1/2000. You can't exactly do revolutionary spec bumps in the gap from 1959 to 1971 because this is the 60s and it's a film camera. But the real changes were with the refinements to using the camera. So here we have the Nikon F2 in the flesh, or as I should probably say, in the brass. And I'm not going to go over every single detail of the body. Honestly, if you've used a film camera like this before, you probably know where everything is, like this, aperture preview, depth of field lever. Instead, we're going to compare it to the Nikon F and see what changed. So here's the Nikon F. This is the eye level version, and while on the F2 I have the DP11 prism. So if you compare the F and the F2, they look pretty much the same. Most of the controls are in the same place. Got rid of this little 2036 switch. One interesting difference is that on the F2, in order to rewind the film, you don't turn the collar like you do on the Nikon F. So on this, if you want to rewind the film, you turn the collar to or to rewind, and then you can just rewind your film. Doesn't work like that on the F2. It works more like every other film camera since then. You go to the bottom of the camera, you push in the rewind button to unlock the spool, and then you wind the film back into the can using the winder. Another interesting thing is that around the shutter button we have the T and L switch. So what this does is, if you lift it up, you can turn it to L mode, and that will actually lock the shutter button entirely so you can't press it, which is quite handy. The Nikon F did not have this. But if you switch the button over to T mode, nothing really happens. So the camera operates as usual. But you can't advance. Instead you have to move the collar back to the center to advance it. So what the devil is this? Well, if we take our shutter speed dial here on the back, now this is coupled to the prism. If we set the camera to bulb mode and then we press the shutter button, if we hold it down, we can expose for much longer exposures. However, with this T, we can set it to a time mode. So now, and the only way to close it is to move the collar back to the center. So that's kind of a cool trick to have a nice T mode on the camera. Now another thing about the F2 is that you'll notice that the lever is a little bit weird. It has this locked position, and then it has what I'm going to call the on position. This activates the light meter. So on the F2, the body contains the battery for the light meter. Two LR44 batteries go in the bottom here. Now these batteries do not affect the operation of the camera itself. It's still fully mechanical, but it is used to power the light meter. The light meter is now on, and if you leave the camera down in this position, the light meter will eventually just drain the batteries. So make sure you keep that closed when you're storing the camera, otherwise you're going to end up with no light meter. You'll still be able to shoot because it's fully mechanical, but you won't have a light meter. So on the Nikon F, you had this archaic, goofy system that was carried over from Nikon's rangefinders, where you open this tab and the entire bottom of the camera comes off. Now this doesn't sound annoying until you realize you can lose this piece, drop it and break it. But if you have a tripod plate on the bottom, well, you're not changing film. And on the Nikon F2, we have the normal back open door film hinge design thing. So to open it, all we need to do is twist this out, unlock it, rear door opens, and you can access the film compartment. Close it and make sure to lock it closed properly here. If you don't do this and it gets bumped, the bump will pop open on you and destroy your film. I haven't had it happen yet, but like Thanos, it is inevitable. As for the prism, there's many options for this camera. I have the DP11 prism, which is the AI compatible prism with the AI tab, and it also has the needle match meter, which I really like. Now to take the prism off on this, it's kind of awkward. this little button here on the rear, which is actually quite difficult. You have to simultaneously take this lever here, in and down to unlock the prism. So we're going to hold that down. I'm going to do this. Come on. And the prism should just lift away. It's fiddly at the best to get this thing off, but voila. And we can see how the prism connects to the shutter speed dial. There's a little pin here that connects into a little groove here, and that just allows the prism to move the shutter speed dial around. And we can see that we have interchangeable focus screens. Anyway, to put the prism back on, you just line it up, push it down firmly, and it locks into place. So one nice thing about having the DP11 prism on the F2 is that not only does it have that lovely needle match meter, it means I can use AI lenses. So I can take this very nice autofocus fisheye lens and I can place it on this 1970s camera, and it just fits on perfect and everything works. But if I do want to use a pre-AI lens, I need to make sure that that tab's away. So the first thing I need to do is push the tab up into the body until it clicks in place. Then I can take our pre-AI lens. This is a 5cm lens from 1959. One of the issues with this system is that the meter is now uncoupled. So if you had one of the earlier prisms, like a DP1, there would be a little prong that would connect to the bunny ears here and allow the meter to work properly. So in order to meter with this, what you have to do is meter while holding down the depth of field preview, which stops the aperture down to what you want. Then you turn the shutter speed dial and then figure out, what metering you're going to use. Take your shot. You can use pre-AI lenses and AI lenses with this prism, which is quite nice. Now, if we want to go back to using AI lenses, we need to release the tab, and all you do is push this forward. And now we can put our AI lens on. So now let's go shooting. Okay, you've stopped now. So I'm out here in the Phoenix Park doing my usual kind of, photographs of Phoenix Park. I'm testing and getting some B-roll footage for the F2 video. And I've just photographed this tree here up close. And I was over there where the deer are to get some deer shots, because of course it's a video for me, it's going to have deer shots in it. But I realized once I got back, and I'm 12 shots into this roll of Ektachrome, that I never set the ISO on my camera, so it's actually set to 200 ISO. So I guess I'm pushing this roll without planning to. So what's your opinion on the Nikon F2? No comment? F2 does take a battery, but it's only for running the meter. The camera works 100% without it. Now on the F, they had the battery in the prism, but on the F2, they actually moved the battery to the body, I assume to make swapping the prisms around much easier. Now the F2 is actually compatible with a wide range of lenses, but it depends on which prism you have on it. So first up, you have the unmetered prisms like the eye level, waist level, action and high magnification finders. So on my camera, I have the DP11, which makes this the F2A. And I have to say, I really like using this prism. I find using the needle match meter a joy to use and much easier than the sort of plus minus LED style of the F3. And I really like this type of meter because I can use the needle to see the relative exposure to middle tone, and I can judge that exposure against the scene relative to things like highlights and shadows by moving the camera around, and then I can see the needle move and get a good idea of where the exposure is going. If I have, let's say, some slide film in here and I have a scene where the meter is mostly measuring white buildings, I know that that needle needs to be at +1 to +1 2/3 stops over middle tone. And I can easily judge that by using the needle meter. But on the LED versions, it just kind of says overexposed. It doesn't tell you how overexposed it is. So the needle gives me a much more accurate guess as to how overexposed I am relative or underexposed relative to middle tone. And then using this meter in that way, I was actually able to shoot ectochrome with near perfect exposure. Well, apart from me forgetting that the ISO was set to 200 and I had to push the film one step in development. But apart from that, I was able to judge the exposure really well with this. Also with this camera, Nikon kind of went off the rails, making some pretty wild accessories. They have the usual stuff like motor drives and bellows, but they also made a 250 and a 750 exposure back, which, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want one. You know, whipping out that bad boy loaded with 250D would be a goddamn statement. But you can also get into some really weird stuff, and there's actually an analog data back for these that uses these little clockwork tumbler things. They're basically little clocks that imprint data onto the film with this little like dark slide looking card. Look, I have no idea how all this works, but basically you can get a data back for this that will imprint data onto your film using mechanical clockwork, which is just awesome. Like, damn, that's cool. And then there's also the series of EE aperture control attachments like the DS1, 2, and 12, which added exposure modes by motorizing the aperture ring. So it's essentially like this big, goofy mechanical thing that bolts onto the side of here and clamps around the aperture ring. And then the camera can mechanically move the ring to give you more exposure modes. It's super cool, and there's some videos online you can find of this if you look for them. What was Nikon smoking back in the day with these? And I didn't even touch on some of like the medical stuff like the microscope attachments. And there is some insane other gizmos out there for this as well, even from third parties that allow you to shoot like 4x5 film in one of these. Now, this is one of those cases where going down the Google rabbit hole might actually be worth it. Now, there are a few other quirks on this camera. Winding the film on this camera has a bit of a gritty feeling. I'm not sure if that's just my camera though, but it's no more worse than other cameras. However, compared to the sexual smoothness of the F3, it's like scraping a tooth. Also, this camera's got some gravity in here. It is a good dense chunk of metal, glass, brass, and ass. And lastly, some of the accessories for this camera can be pretty expensive. The DP12 prism can be a few shiny pennies. The F2AS, which is the one with the DP12 prism, can go for around €300, but I got this F2A in Shinjuku camera box for €120, so not a bad deal for the F2. You know, I really should make a video guide on buying camera gear in Japan sometime. So, is the F2 any good? Yes. Yes, it is. It is a really nice camera. Fully mechanical, has lots of accessories and lenses available for cheap, and it can be had for a surprisingly low price. And here's a bit of a controversial opinion. For me, I would probably buy this over the F3. Just for that needle meter. It makes metering much more pleasant and is causing me some 100% concentrate industrial grade gas for an FM3A which has a similar meter. Also, now that I own an F2, I have completed at long last the full Nikon F set. But that's for another video in the future. See you next time.